Lesego Tlhabi, better known by her alter ego, Coconut Kelz, the queen of satire, is starring in a new digital content series called Comedians in Quarantine, presented by Comedy Central. The series will give viewers a humorous take on just how some of Africa's most beloved comedians have been coping with being in quarantine and in lockdown. She joins us now this morning to chat about being a woman in comedy and how she has managed to continue producing content while in quarantine. Lesego, a very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. Welcome.
Hi, thank you very much.
Well, we know that Coconut Kelz has had our jaws dropping. She threw us into fits of laughter. But how would you, as Lesego, describe Coconut Kelz?
Sure. Okay, so Coconut Kelz is my favorite kind of Gen Z/millennial. I'm actually not sure how old she is, but she's very positive and she's very confident, but she's also very misinformed. So she's a coconut, which is why I use the name. Born black, but lived in a very white world, went to white schools, and she believes very much in the power of white privilege and the DA.
And you know what, Lesego, I think most South Africans and Africans in general are quite familiar with the concept of a coconut. So for everyone else, what is a coconut, especially with reference to Coconut Kelz?
Basically it's just someone who's black on the outside and white on the inside, and that varies as to what that means to different people. Sometimes it's the way I speak makes me a coconut, it's the schools I went to, it's the fact that I like wearing hair like this. So they're varying things. Some people will be a coconut just because they went to a former Model C school, but even to former Model C school students, sometimes a coconut is even more. Maybe you don't have black friends, you only date white people, there's certain different things, but basically it's black people who seem to act white. Whatever.
Okay, and what is that one thing, Lesego, that you wanted to become? And is it in contrast to Coconut Kelz?
Well, Coconut Kelz is not what I wanted to become specifically. I wanted to do things in entertainment. I wanted to write. So I did study theatre. I did study musical theatre and TV writing. So what I wanted to become, I have become.
Okay. Good stuff. Good to hear that. And quite a number of people might not get satire, or they can easily get offended by Coconut Kelz. How then do you move from that and focus on still delivering humor to those that really understand?
I have actually just learned to block. I think before I used to try explain to everybody or, comment on every negative response. But for me now, it's just about the people who get it, enjoy it, and those who don't get it or don't enjoy it can just move on or mute me. I just focus on the people who do get it. And I think there's a little bit of like a community with those of the people who do get it to kind of make fun of people who get angry at Coconut Kelz as if she's a real person. It's actually kind of become a bit fun to have a joke on them.
The joke's on them, definitely.
Yeah.
And just how different has it been for you to produce content during this lockdown?
It's not really been that different because I always made content with my own phone in my car. So I've kind of just done it on a bigger scale now, because maybe before I was shooting TV ads and things like that with crews, and now I'm doing a lot of brand work alone with my phone. But I was a digital girl. I started on Instagram and YouTube, and it's just kind of a continuation of what I was doing before.
Yeah, and you have a show on Comedy Central, isn't it? Do tell us more about this show.
Yeah, so Comedians in Quarantine, it's not necessarily a show. It's like it's a short, short videos, about 2 to 3 minutes long each. And it features like me, Skalk Bezuidenhout, David Gao, Elsa Majimbo, Barry Hilton. And we just kind of have a short little tips and series that are on Instagram and YouTube that focus on, what comedians are getting up to in quarantine. And obviously I'm doing it as my character, Coconut Kelz. But yeah, so it's just kind of like talking about different things in quarantine that we all can identify with or all agree with.
Okay. And do people get what you were trying to put there with your book? I mean, usually when South Africans think of political satire, racism and classism comes to mind.
Yeah, I think the people who bought the book, like I said, were people who probably followed me before. So they do get the satire. They do get, I think what people were surprised about in book form is how biting it actually was. Because, I do a humorous take on satirical issues, but it's still very cutting. It's about white privilege. It's about racism. It's about, very deep classism and race identity issues. So it's actually quite a biting book, even though it's obviously layered in my brand of humor. But it's basically my videos put into writing form and just a nice little thing to have.
Yeah. So let's talk a bit more about the state of comedy in South Africa. Are we where we're supposed to be? Or do you get a sense that people are much more receptive to political satire as compared to stand-up comedy?
I think people are more receptive to stand-up comedy than they are to political satire. I just feel like if you're not wearing, if you're not a man dressed as a woman, people can't see the joke. It took a very long time, like much longer than I expected, for people to realize that Coconut Kelz is a character as ridiculous as I tried to be. So I don't actually think this country is quite with it yet with political satire. But, one day at a time, we'll get there. And I think we are far behind, countries like the United States and England in terms of how much comedians get paid, the opportunities they get, and just the space they have to play. Because, once you're a political satirist or once you've chosen your niche, you get boxed in. And I think the nice thing about America is you get to play in as many things. I mean, Steve Carell does dramatic acting now, and, people have TV shows, daily news shows. So I wish we had more space to play around like that, because every time I come with an idea, people are always like, Kells, we need you to have a show. We want you to watch you on, the TV every day. And I've been pitching. I've been to TV production companies. I've pitched, shows that I think work overseas that can be repackaged locally. And, we're always told about budget issues. We're always told that South Africa's not ready. So, it's a bit frustrating sometimes to be in a place where you feel like I've reached the ceiling of what I can do here. And now I want to grow and I need to leave to do that.
Yeah. And I suppose that so many comedians, especially in South Africa, struggle with striking a balance between, freedom of speech and respecting other people's rights and not stepping on other people's toes.
Yeah, well, I think if you can't be funny without being offensive, then you're not funny.
Right.
And I think there's so much room, even though people, you need to be PC in a certain way. There is actually a lot of room for South Africans to allow people to laugh at ourselves. We have a lot of comedians who make jokes that are on the line of offense that people actually take and enjoy. I think it depends on where you're coming from, and it depends on where people know you're coming from. But I just think that if people say don't be bigotous and you have a struggle with that in order to make jokes, then you probably just were a bigot who was trying to get laughs off being offensive.
Okay, just before I let you go, Lesego, can we expect another book from you anytime soon? And what is Coconut Kelz busy with?
Well, I wouldn't say anytime soon, but definitely one of my dreams growing up was to be an author. So I'm not even sure if it's going to be as Coconut Kelz. There will be another book at some point, I'm sure. And with Coconut Kelz, obviously I've got Comedians in Quarantine coming up, which is available on Instagram and YouTube on Comedy Central pages. And also, a lot of work that I can't... the thing with asking comedians and stuff about work is we sign so many NDAs that everything has to be announced as it comes up. So just keep your eyes on my social media pages, and I am working with a lot of brands, and it's really exciting stuff. So I just keep an eye on my Instagram and Twitter.
All right, Lesego, keep them laughing, man. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Good stuff. We just spoke to Lesego Tlhabi, better known by her alter ego, Coconut Kelz. She's starring in a new digital content series called Comedians in Quarantine on Comedy Central. It is 3 minutes to 8 o'clock. Let's take a look at some social media responses. All right, Wandisile Kyabazeka says, I know that small town. I did my college there back in 2007. That's a response to our small town of choice, which was Willowville in the Eastern Cape. MD Makwaza says, morning Sims. Yes, I know this town. And in Xhosa, we say it's Gatyane. Sob Sigeno says, morning Sims and the crew. I know Willowvale. I started my schooling in a very famous village with rich history known as Fort Malan. Songezo says, Ekhoha, the small town surrounded coastal villages in the Wild Coast. Tokolo says, morning Sims, I was born there. It's a very hot place and it's also beautiful.